Gaines Adams was built for football glory. A defensive end with explosive speed and a 6'6" frame, he rose from Greenwood, South Carolina, to become the 4th overall pick in the 2007 NFL Draft, selected by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. By 2009, he was wearing the navy and orange of the Chicago Bears, a young star with years of promise ahead. But on the morning of January 17, 2010, that promise ended in silence. At just 26 years old, Adams collapsed at his home in Greenwood. Rushed to the emergency room, doctors could not save him. The cause stunned the sports world: sudden cardiac arrest. The autopsy revealed the truth. Adams had an enlarged heart, a condition undetected during his playing career. For his family, teammates, and fans, it was incomprehensible. How could a professional athlete, seemingly in peak condition, carry a hidden threat so devastating? Tributes poured in across the league. Coaches remembered his raw talent. Teammates spoke of his warmth and laughter. Fans mourned a career that felt like it had only just begun. Gone at 26, remembered for both his promise and the fragility of life. Jaylon Ferguson, they called him the Sack Daddy. Ferguson, linebacker for the Baltimore Ravens, was a young star whose power and speed made him one of the most feared pass rushers in college football. At Louisiana Tech, he rewrote history, setting the all-time FBS record with 45 career sacks, a mark that caught the attention of every NFL scout. In 2019, the Ravens drafted him in the 3rd round, adding him to a defense built on toughness and tradition. Ferguson showed flashes of the same relentless energy that defined his college career, and fans believed his breakout moment was only a matter of time. Off the field, he was admired for his humility and for being a devoted father to 3 children. But on June 21, 2022, tragedy struck. Ferguson was found unresponsive in his Baltimore home. He was just 26 years old. The medical examiner later confirmed the cause: the combined effects of fentanyl and cocaine. His death was ruled accidental, but the loss was crushing. The Ravens and the wider football community mourned the young linebacker who had barely begun to reach his prime. Teammates remembered his constant smile, his dedication to the game, and the bright future that would never come. A record-setting talent, a promising professional, and a loving father, gone far too soon. His name lives on not only in the record books, but in the memories of those who knew the man behind the helmet. David Griggs was a hard-hitting linebacker who made his name with the Miami Dolphins before becoming a starter for the San Diego Chargers. In January 1995, he played on football's biggest stage, Super Bowl 29, at just 27 years old. But only months later, his life ended in tragedy. In the early hours of June 20, 1995, Griggs was driving his Lexus on a ramp near Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Traveling at high speed, he lost control. The vehicle skidded across 2 medians and slammed into a highway sign pole. Emergency crews rushed him to Broward General Hospital, but he was pronounced dead on arrival. He was just 28 years old. A later toxicology report revealed his blood alcohol level was 0.16%, twice Florida's legal limit. The official cause of death was blunt cranial cerebral trauma. For teammates and fans, the news was devastating. Griggs had been a rising star, remembered not only for his intensity on the field, but also for the energy he brought to the locker room. Eric Turner. He was the soul of every defense he led. Drafted 2nd overall in 1991, the highest pick ever for a defensive back at the time, he carried expectations that would crush most. But Turner thrived. With the Cleveland Browns, he became a force. In 1994, he led the entire league with 9 interceptions, earning first-team All-Pro honors and a trip to the Pro Bowl. His presence on the field was undeniable, fast, physical, and fearless. Teammates saw him as both a competitor and a leader who never backed down. But behind the helmet and pads, his health was quietly deteriorating. By early 2000, while playing with the Oakland Raiders, Turner was battling abdominal cancer. He denied rumors of serious illness, insisting he wasn't gravely sick, but the truth was unavoidable. He had lost significant weight and the fight was taking its toll. On May 28, 2000, Turner was admitted to Los Robles Hospital in Thousand Oaks, California, after struggling to breathe. Just 6 hours later, he was gone. At only 31 years old, one of the NFL's brightest defensive stars was lost far too soon. The shock rippled across the league. Coaches remembered him as a warrior. Teammates described him as compassionate, a class act both on and off the field. His legacy endures. In his highlights, in the memories of those who played beside him, and in the honors he received posthumously at UCLA. where he was inducted into the school's Hall of Fame. Tyler Sash was a standout safety at the University of Iowa, known for his fierce tackling and instinct for the ball. In 2011, his NFL dream came true when the New York Giants drafted him in the 6th round. That very season, he earned a Super Bowl ring as a rookie, contributing on special teams in the Giants' stunning victory over the New England Patriots in Super Bowl 46. But the promise of his career faded quickly. Sash battled injuries and concussions, and in 2012, he was suspended 4 games for violating the league's performance-enhancing substances policy. Just a year later, in August 2013, the Giants released him after only 2 seasons in the league. On September 8, 2015, in his hometown of Oskaloosa, Iowa, Sash was found dead at the age of 27. The medical examiner later determined he had died from an accidental overdose of methadone and hydrocodone, both powerful painkillers. But months later, an even deeper truth was revealed. Scientists examining his brain discovered advanced CTE. Doctors said his condition was severe. The discovery shed light on the struggles Sash faced in his final years: memory loss, confusion, mood swings, and difficulty adjusting to life outside football. The next 5 stories on the list left every NFL fan heartbroken. Football lovers around the United States said they had tears in their eyes when the news broke. Don Rodgers was the kind of player every team dreams of. Drafted in the 1st round by the Cleveland Browns in 1984, the hard-hitting safety quickly made his mark, even earning NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year honors. At just 23, he was seen as the future of the Browns' defense. But on June 27, 1986, tragedy struck. Just 1 day before his wedding, Rodgers collapsed at his mother's home in Sacramento. Doctors determined he suffered a fatal heart attack brought on by cocaine use. The timing made the shock even greater. It came only 8 days after the death of basketball star Len Bias, who also died from cocaine-related heart failure. Together, their sudden losses sent a chilling message that rocked the world of professional sports. For the Browns, it meant losing a cornerstone of their defense. For his family, it turned a day of joy into unthinkable grief, as the wedding they had prepared for became a day of mourning. Sean Taylor. He was a force of nature on the football field. Drafted 5th overall by Washington in 2004, the safety quickly earned a reputation as one of the hardest hitters in the NFL, a Pro Bowler in 2006, and the heart of his team's defense. But on November 27, 2007, the league lost him far too soon. Just hours earlier, intruders broke into Taylor's Miami home. Inside, Sean was recovering from a knee injury, spending the night with his fiancée, Jackie Garcia, and their young daughter. When he confronted the burglars with a machete in hand, a single shot was fired. The bullet severed his femoral artery. He was rushed to Jackson Memorial Hospital, where doctors fought to save him, but the loss of blood was too great. At only 24 years old, Sean Taylor was gone. The NFL community was stunned. Teammates wept, fans mourned, and thousands turned out to honor his memory. Washington later retired his number 21 jersey, inducted him into the franchise's Ring of Fame, and the league named him to the Pro Bowl posthumously. 5 young men were charged in connection with the crime. 1, Eric Rivera, confessed to firing the fatal shot and received a 57-year prison sentence. Another, Jason Mitchell, was sentenced to life for his role. Taylor's legacy remains on the field. His highlight reel hits, his speed, and his passion still inspire safeties who model their game after him. Sean Taylor's life may have been cut short in an instant, but his name lives on as one of the greatest talents the NFL lost in his prime. Corey Stringer was a towering force on the Minnesota Vikings offensive line, a Pro Bowl tackle known for his strength and reliability. At just 27 years old, he seemed destined for a long NFL career. But on August 1, 2001, tragedy struck at the Vikings training camp in Mankato, Minnesota. The day before, Stringer had completed a 2-hour practice in full pads under a brutal heat index that climbed as high as 110 degrees. Teammates and staff saw him vomit several times, but he refused to step away. By the next morning, his body was overwhelmed. During drills, he collapsed and was rushed to a hospital. His core temperature had soared to 108 degrees, and despite every effort, he died of exertional heat stroke in the early hours of August 1st. Stringer became the first and only NFL player to lose his life directly to heat stroke. The shock rippled far beyond Minnesota, forcing the league and other sports organizations to confront the dangers of extreme heat. His death led to stricter hydration rules, medical monitoring, and safety reforms that still protect athletes today. Darrent Williams was a rising star in Denver. Drafted by the Broncos in 2005 out of Oklahoma State, he quickly earned a reputation as a fearless cornerback, fast, dynamic, and only 24 years old with his entire career ahead of him. On New Year's Eve 2006, Williams joined teammates and friends at a nightclub in downtown Denver. The celebration carried into the early hours of January 1, 2007. But as Williams left in a white limousine, tragedy struck. Just after 2 a.m., gunfire erupted in a drive-by shooting near Spear Boulevard. Bullets tore into the vehicle. Williams was hit in the neck and died almost instantly. 2 other passengers were wounded but survived. The news shattered the NFL community. A young life, filled with talent and promise, was gone in an instant. After a lengthy investigation, Denver gang member Willie Clark was convicted in 2010 of Williams' murder. He was sentenced to life in prison plus over 1,100 years. Though his career was cut short, Darrent Williams' legacy endures. Through the foundation created in his name, and in the hearts of Broncos fans who still remember his energy, his passion, and the bright future that was stolen on that January morning. Jovan Belcher. He was a linebacker for the Kansas City Chiefs, known for his toughness on the field and promise at just 25 years old. But on December 1, 2012, his life ended in tragedy that shook the entire NFL. That morning, Belcher shot and killed his girlfriend, 22-year-old Cassandra Perkins, at their Kansas City home. The two had reportedly argued in the weeks leading up to the incident. Perkins was later confirmed to have been shot 9 times. Belcher then drove to the Chiefs' training facility near Arrowhead Stadium. There, he met with team officials, head coach Romeo Crennel and general manager Scott Pioli. Witnesses said Belcher thanked them for everything they had done for him before taking his own life with a gunshot in the parking lot. The following day, the Chiefs played their scheduled game against the Carolina Panthers, opening with a moment of silence for victims of domestic violence. The decision to play so soon after the tragedy remains controversial. Later, Belcher's autopsy revealed he was intoxicated at the time, and studies of his brain found signs of chronic CTE. Derek Thomas was more than just a linebacker. He was the soul of the Kansas City Chiefs' defense. Over 11 seasons, he racked up 126.5 sacks, 9 Pro Bowls, and set an NFL single-game record with 7 sacks in 1990. At just 33 years old, his legend was still being written. But on January 23, 2000, his life took a far darker turn. Driving on an icy Kansas City highway with 2 friends, Thomas lost control of his SUV. The crash killed 1 passenger instantly, left another with minor injuries, and threw Thomas from the vehicle. He survived, but the damage was devastating. Spinal cord injuries left him paralyzed from the chest down. Even in the hospital, he showed determination. Teammates recalled his smile and his will to fight through rehabilitation. But just over 2 weeks later, on February 8, 2000, tragedy struck again. While recovering at Jackson Memorial Hospital in Miami, Thomas suffered a massive pulmonary embolism, a blood clot that traveled to his lungs and went into cardiac arrest. He was gone in minutes. The football world mourned. In 2009, Derek Thomas was enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, his name forever carved into history. Just when you think it can't get worse than these, the next 5 names on the list will bring you to tears. Their stories are completely devastating. Joe Delaney was only 24, but he was already a star. The Kansas City Chiefs running back exploded onto the scene in 1981, rushing for over 1,100 yards as a rookie and earning a Pro Bowl selection. Fans saw a future legend in the making. But on June 29, 1983, his story took a tragic turn. At a park in Monroe, Louisiana, Delaney noticed 3 young boys struggling in a deep water hole. He couldn't swim, but that didn't matter. Without hesitation, he dove in to try and save them. 2 of the children survived. Joe Delaney and another boy did not. His body was recovered hours later, a young athlete gone in an instant. His life cut short, but his final act defined by courage. The loss stunned the NFL. In recognition of his sacrifice, President Ronald Reagan awarded him the Presidential Citizens Medal, praising him for placing the lives of children above his own safety. Joe Delaney's number 37 was never worn again by a Chiefs player. His legacy endures, not just as a Pro Bowl running back, but as a man remembered for his heart, his bravery, and the ultimate sacrifice he made for others. Marquise Hill was more than just a defensive end for the New England Patriots. He was a hometown hero from Louisiana, a Super Bowl champion with a future full of promise. But on the evening of May 27, 2007, tragedy struck. Hill was riding a personal watercraft on Lake Pontchartrain near New Orleans with a female friend. Neither wore a life jacket. When the craft flipped, both were thrown into the dark water. In those frantic moments, Hill focused not on saving himself, but on keeping his companion calm and above the surface. She was rescued. He disappeared beneath the waves. The next afternoon, on May 28th, wildlife officials recovered his body. He was just 24 years old. The coroner ruled the death an accidental drowning, with no signs of drugs or alcohol involved. It was suggested he may have suffered a concussion when he fell, leaving him disoriented and unable to fight the water. Teammates remembered him not for tackles or stats, but for his final act, sacrificing his life to save another. Jeff Gladney was a star with the talent and determination to anchor an NFL secondary. Born on December 12, 1996, in New Boston, Texas, he became a standout at TCU before the Minnesota Vikings drafted him in the first round of the 2020 NFL Draft. His rookie year was filled with promise, and after time away from the field, Gladney was ready for a comeback. In March 2022, the Arizona Cardinals signed him to a 2-year deal, a second chance to revive a career many believed was just getting started. But in the early hours of May 30th, 2022, tragedy struck. Around 2:30 a.m. in Dallas, Gladney's white Mercedes SUV was speeding when it clipped another vehicle, veered out of control, hit a freeway beam, and caught fire. Both Gladney and his passenger, 26-year-old Andrea Mercedes Palacios, were killed instantly. He was only 25 years old. The shock rippled across the NFL. The Cardinals, Vikings, and former teammates all mourned a life and career cut short. A player who had fought his way back onto the field never got the chance to show the world what he could become. Chuck Hughes. On October 24, 1971, Detroit's Tiger Stadium was packed with more than 54,000 fans as the Lions faced the Chicago Bears. In the fourth quarter, 28-year-old wide receiver Chuck Hughes stepped onto the field. Just moments after running a route, he suddenly collapsed, clutching his chest, and fell face-first onto the turf. At first, many believed it was part of the play, but Chicago linebacker Dick Butkus immediately realized something was wrong and frantically waved to the sideline for help. Medical staff rushed in, and Hughes was quickly transported to Henry Ford Hospital. Despite desperate efforts, he was pronounced dead at 5:34 p.m. The cause was coronary thrombosis brought on by advanced arteriosclerosis. Hughes left behind a wife and a young son. To this day, he remains the only NFL player to die during a game. Larry Gordon was the heartbeat of Miami's defense in the late 1970s. Drafted in the first round of 1976, the linebacker from Arizona State became a starter from day one. His speed and range made him one of the most dynamic defenders of his era, a cornerstone of Don Shula's Dolphins. But on June 25, 1983, tragedy struck. While jogging in the desert near his home in Laveen, Arizona, Gordon collapsed. He was rushed to a Phoenix hospital, but within an hour, he was gone. The cause was heart disease, an unthinkable end for a 28-year-old athlete still in peak condition. News of his death sent shockwaves through the Dolphins organization. Teammates mourned not only the loss of a gifted linebacker, but a leader whose best years still lay ahead. Larry Gordon's story remains one of the NFL's most heartbreaking chapters. Rodney Culver was a star who shone too briefly. Born December 23, 1969, he rose to prominence at Notre Dame, where his powerful running helped the Fighting Irish reach 2 Orange Bowls. In 1992, the Indianapolis Colts drafted him, and he quickly earned respect as a tough short-yardage back. 2 years later, Culver joined the San Diego Chargers. In the 1994 playoffs, he scored 2 touchdowns, helping the team reach Super Bowl 29. At just 26, his NFL career seemed to be taking off. But on May 11, 1996, tragedy struck. Culver and his wife, Karen, boarded ValueJet Flight 592 in Miami. Minutes after takeoff, the DC-9 went down in the Florida Everglades after an onboard fire. All 110 passengers and crew were killed, including the young running back and his wife. The NFL lost not only a promising player, but a devoted family man. Teammates remembered his humility, his drive, and the kindness he carried off the field. The next 5 stories not only shattered the dressing rooms across all NFL teams, it shattered the hearts of football fans who loved the game. Fred Lane was an undrafted running back who quickly became a standout for the Carolina Panthers. In just 3 seasons, he rushed for more than 2,000 yards, earning a reputation for his determination and fearless running style. But on July 6, 2000, Lane's life ended in tragedy. He had just returned to his Charlotte home when his wife, Deidre Lane, shot him twice, once in the chest and once in the back of the head. Their young daughter was inside the house at the time. The shocking death of a 24-year-old NFL player stunned fans and teammates across the league. Investigators uncovered a deeply troubled marriage marked by conflict. Prosecutors later argued that Deidre Lane plotted to kill her husband, while the defense claimed she acted in self-defense. In 2003, she pleaded guilty to voluntary manslaughter and was sentenced to almost 8 years in prison, later serving additional time on a federal weapons charge. She was released in 2009. Fred Lane's story remains one of the NFL's darkest tragedies, a promising career cut short, not by injury on the field, but by violence at home. Chris Henry was a wide receiver with rare talent. Drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals in 2005, he was known for his speed, his reach, and his ability to change a game in a single play. But his career was turbulent. Off-field issues and league suspensions slowed his rise. By 2009, though, he seemed to be on a new path, rebuilding his career, his family, and his life. On December 16, 2009, in Charlotte, North Carolina, a heated dispute with his fiancée turned tragic. As she drove away in a pickup truck, Henry climbed onto the back. Moments later, he fell from the moving vehicle, suffering catastrophic injuries. He was rushed to Carolina's medical center, but the next morning, December 17th, he was pronounced dead at just 26 years old. An autopsy confirmed blunt force trauma as the cause of death, and toxicology reports showed no alcohol in his system. After his passing, doctors discovered that Henry had chronic CTE, making him the first active NFL player diagnosed with the disease. It added another layer of heartbreak to an already devastating loss. Teammates and coaches remembered him as a man who was fighting to turn his life around. Bengals owner Mike Brown said Henry had been running to daylight, cut down just as he was beginning to change. Jerome Brown was more than a defensive tackle. He was the heartbeat of Philadelphia's defense. Drafted 9th overall in 1987, the University of Miami star quickly became the anchor of the Eagles' ferocious front line, earning Pro Bowl selections in 1990 and 1991. At just 27, his prime was still ahead of him. But on June 25, 1992, tragedy struck in Brooksville, Florida. Driving his Corvette after leaving a car dealership, Brown lost control on a slick road. The car slammed into a tree, killing both him and his 12-year-old nephew, Gus. The news shattered the Eagles and the entire NFL. That very night, teammate Reggie White broke down announcing Brown's death during a Billy Graham crusade. The Eagles responded by retiring his number 99, keeping his locker intact, and rallying around the words, "Bring it home for Jerome." Jerome Brown's career was cut short, but his legacy has never faded. He embodied power, passion, and heart, and left behind the haunting question, how great could he have become if fate had given him more time? Dwayne Haskins was a quarterback defined by promise. At Ohio State in 2018, he threw 50 touchdown passes, setting Big Ten records and becoming a Heisman finalist. That brilliance made him the 15th overall pick in the 2019 NFL Draft by Washington. His professional career was marked by struggles and change. After 2 uneven seasons in Washington, he signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2021, hoping for redemption and a chance to restart his journey. But that opportunity never came. On the morning of April 9, 2022, in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Haskins' car had run out of gas along Interstate 595. While on foot attempting to cross the highway, he was struck by a dump truck and then an SUV. Emergency responders arrived quickly, but the 24-year-old was pronounced dead at the scene. A toxicology report later revealed he had alcohol and ketamine in his system, and investigators ruled his death an accident caused by multiple blunt force injuries. The football world mourned instantly. Teammates, coaches, and fans remembered not just his arm strength and achievements, but his upbeat energy and determination to keep fighting for his place in the league. David Overstreet was a first-round draft pick by the Miami Dolphins in 1981, a running back out of the University of Oklahoma known for his speed and explosive talent. After starting his career in the Canadian Football League, he finally joined the Dolphins in 1983, where he showed flashes of promise that hinted at a bright future. But on June 24, 1984, tragedy struck. Driving near Madisonville, Texas, Overstreet's Mercedes veered off State Highway 155 and slammed into a service station gas pump. The car exploded, killing him instantly. He was just 25 years old. Investigators later revealed he had a blood alcohol level of 0.12, above the legal limit in Texas, and may have fallen asleep at the wheel. The Miami Dolphins honored his memory throughout the 1984 season, wearing a helmet decal with his number 20. Head coach Don Shula remembered him as a gifted player whose potential would never be fully realized. David Overstreet's life ended in seconds, leaving behind the question of what his career could have become had he been given more time. Darrell Russell was born on May 27, 1976, and rose to stardom as a dominant defensive tackle at USC. His rare mix of size and athleticism made him the second overall pick in the 1997 NFL Draft by the Oakland Raiders. By 1998, he was a Pro Bowler, a cornerstone of a defense that helped Oakland climb back into contention. But his career was marked by turbulence. Repeated suspensions for violating the NFL's substance abuse policy cut short what once looked like a Hall of Fame future. By the early 2000s, his time in the league had largely slipped away. Then, tragedy struck. On December 15, 2005, in Los Angeles, Russell was a passenger in a 2004 Pontiac Grand Prix, driven by his former USC teammate, Mike Bastianelli. Around 6 a.m., the car lost control at high speed, jumping a curb on La Cienega Boulevard. It plowed through a fire hydrant, a light pole, and a bus stop before slamming into an unoccupied transit bus and finally a building. Both men were killed, Bastianelli at UCLA Medical Center and Russell at Cedars-Sinai Hospital. He was just 29 years old. For fans and teammates, it was devastating news. Darrell Russell's life was a story of breathtaking talent, struggles off the field, and a sudden violent end that left the football world stunned. Edwin Jackson's story was one of perseverance. Undrafted in 2015, he fought his way into the league, earning a spot with the Indianapolis Colts and quickly becoming a respected presence on defense. His energy and determination made him a favorite among teammates and fans. But on February 4, 2018, tragedy struck. Just hours before Super Bowl 52, Jackson, 26, was riding with Uber driver Jeffrey Monroe in Indianapolis. After Jackson became ill, Monroe pulled over on I-70. As they stood on the shoulder of the highway, a pickup truck driven by 37-year-old Manuel Orrego Zavala, later found to be intoxicated and in the country illegally, crashed into them, killing both men. Orrego Zavala fled on foot but was arrested shortly after. He later pleaded guilty to 2 counts of causing death while driving intoxicated and was sentenced to 16 years in prison. The loss of Edwin Jackson shook the NFL. His career was just beginning, but his fight to achieve his dream left a lasting legacy. Terrence Keel was born on November 24, 1980, and rose to prominence as a hard-hitting safety at Texas A&M. His performance caught the attention of the NFL, and in 2003, the San Diego Chargers selected him in the second round of the draft. On the field, Keel quickly became known for his speed, toughness, and fearless play in the secondary. Over 4 seasons, he appeared in more than 50 games, contributing to a defense that was building its identity in the mid-2000s. But his journey came to an abrupt and tragic end. On July 4, 2008, while driving in San Diego's Scripps Ranch neighborhood, Keel lost control of his Chevy sedan. The vehicle struck a wall, rolled over, and ejected him from the car. He was pronounced dead at the scene. He was just 27 years old. Though his career had been marked by both promise and personal struggles, those who knew him remembered his intensity and dedication to the game. For Chargers fans and former teammates, the news turned a day of national celebration into one of shock and mourning. Stacy Torin was more than just a Raider. He was an athlete whose talent carried him from high school basketball heroics in Indianapolis to the defensive backfield at Notre Dame, and eventually to the Los Angeles Raiders. Drafted in 1984, he quickly became a steady presence in the secondary, suiting up in 72 games across 5 seasons. At only 27 years old, his prime years seemed ahead of him. But on the night of August 5, 1989, tragedy struck in Marina del Rey, California. Driving his 1984 BMW near his home, Torin lost control on a curve. The car struck a curb, flipped multiple times, and slammed into a tree. He was not wearing a seatbelt and was ejected from the vehicle. Authorities later confirmed his blood alcohol level was 0.32%, more than 3 times the legal limit. Witnesses estimated his speed between 60 and 80 miles per hour in a 35-mile zone. The coroner listed the cause of death as multiple traumatic injuries. For teammates and fans, the news was devastating. Just hours earlier, Torin had been with friends after a preseason game. Today, Stacy Torin is remembered as a gifted athlete whose story ended far too soon. his name forever etched into Raiders history as one of the game's bright lights, gone in an instant. Pat Tillman was a man defined by conviction. Drafted by the Arizona Cardinals in 1998, he quickly made his mark as a hard-hitting safety. But after the September 11th attacks, Tillman made a decision that stunned the sports world. In May 2002, at the height of his career, he walked away from a multi-million-dollar contract to enlist in the U.S. Army. He trained as an elite Army Ranger, serving first in Iraq before deploying to Afghanistan. To many, he became a symbol of sacrifice and duty. But on April 22, 2004, tragedy struck in the mountains of eastern Afghanistan. Tillman, just 27 years old, was killed in a friendly fire incident during a mission near the village of Spera. The news devastated his family, teammates, and fans across the nation. Initial reports claimed he died heroically in combat, but weeks later, the truth emerged. He had been killed by gunfire from his own unit. Pat Tillman's legacy endures, not only as an NFL standout, but as a soldier whose choice to serve continues to resonate. His life was defined by courage, and even in death, he will forever be remembered. Did I miss any names you think should be on the list? Please mention them in the comments, and if you think more of these stories should be told and the memories of these players should be honored, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much.